Hey everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and happy Sunday, January 25th of 2025. Now, I'm going to jump right in because I have a journal full of notes that feel kind of deep, kind of heavy, kind of happy, just some interesting thoughts that I am so glad I journaled on this week because I have some great questions too. So the very first thing that popped in that I wrote down was aware but alive. And this kind of flows from what we talked about last week. This just kind of carried on because what I'll do sometimes is I'll read my journal entry from the week before and then it'll just bring up some things, bring up some thoughts, and it actually really dictates a lot of not only what comes in, but the way I walk through my week with a different intention. It's kind of reached that level for me. So I'm just gonna just kind of start going through this and expand where it feels appropriate. So aware but alive. It feels like I am at the point where being aware is at its limit. It's done. It's done what it can in my life. Okay, so it's really just felt like, okay, I'm aware, but I need to remind myself I'm alive. Okay, because being aware, it's filled its purpose for me. It's like, okay, I'm aware. Now I need to get to focus on being alive, which is what I'm here to be alive. I'm here to remember who I am and to be alive and participate and appreciate, right? So then I wrote this. I've realized it's not supposed to be a permanent position. So being aware, I'm not supposed to just stay in that permanent place of I'm aware, I'm aware. Look what's coming in, look what's coming in. Look at this thing to be aware of. Look at this thing to be aware of. Okay? It's not supposed to be permanent. Um, Being aware is a good thing, and such a good thing. But then it's not supposed to be permanent because it keeps your nervous system in total fight or flight. At least that's been my personal experience. Um, I've realized it's not supposed to be a permanent position, but a temporary one. Okay. And then I want to be and feel fully alive now. I don't want to just witness life. I want to live it and actually participate in it. You know, this has been something that has really felt a pull for me lately. You know, I'm not a person who takes a lot of vacations, especially the last 6 years. You know, I've really kind of been hunkered into what's happening, trying to make a difference, trying to get my nervous system in check. And, you know, for a while, I felt like the world has been pretty unsafe. And I don't know if you can relate to that. I mean, it's probably been that way through all of human history, but because we have access to all this information, it really feels like, you know, the world feels unsafe. And so I haven't, you know, I used to travel a ton. And I've realized that I need to start getting out, exploring, um, and just being alive on this planet right now. Of course, use my discernment, you know, be careful and all the stuff. But it's really time to start enjoying this life again. I want to be and feel fully alive now. I don't want to be just witnessing life. I want to live it and actually participate in it. You know, I filmed a lot of my step classes the last few years that I taught. And this morning I got up and I've been doing my long walks, but it's super cold here in Utah. And I was like, oh, I just can't, I just need to be in a warm place to get my workout in. So I turned on one of my old classes from, you know, way before COVID. And there's the music. Of course, it's kind of funny because it's me with myself on the video and my class with me, and I'm doing an exercise class to myself. And it's something I've actually done for a really long time, but I realized how much joy I had in the music and the movements and the dancing and I was like, oh, this is amazing. And it actually made me want to maybe reach out to a gym that's close to me and say, hey, I think I need to teach again because I actually walked into my class. I taught this really fun Saturday morning. I used to call it my dance party step class. And 40 to 50 people would show up every Saturday, spring, summer, winter, fall. And 8 o'clock, I would, you know, put on the music. We'd all have our step and we would just dance. And of course, it was a workout. It was a ton of fun. And it kind of made me realize I really don't know if I was done, because I walked in on a Saturday in March of 2020, not realizing it was my last class. And I said, after class was over, I was on this exercise high, this total high. And I said, see you guys next week. And that never happened. The gym I taught at went out of business. And we all know what happened. They closed all the gyms, all the stuff. And I never really got to wind up my 40-year teaching career with just what felt like kind of closure. And I've made peace with it over these years. But this morning, I'm exercising in my step class. I'm feeling alive and amazing. And then I thought, maybe I'm not done. Maybe I need to go to the local gym and just say, hey, do you need do you need a step teacher for, I don't know, 6 months, a year? I mean, who knows? So that thought came into me today as I was just working out, and it felt so good. And I'd had all this whole journaling week on being and feeling alive, which was really amazing. So then I said, I think it keeps me in my body I think it keeps me and my body in constant fight or flight. Okay. If I'm just witnessing life instead of participating in it. And I don't want to be that way. Okay. I can decide to be alive. I put that in quotations. I can decide to be alive, not to be in denial or to escape. Okay. Or to return to being innocent. Okay. I don't want to just be alive and just forget all the stuff that I've become aware of. I don't want to erase myself. I don't want to numb myself out. This is why I've really disconnected from the scrolling on social media. I do find some really good content on YouTube that I tune into. I have a couple channels I like. There's some art channels, there's some music, there's some dance channels. And then there's some finance channels I like to follow. But as far as just scrolling short reels and stuff, I have completely outgrown that, because I feel like it was numbing me out. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. So I don't want to erase myself. I can see the world clearly and then make the choice every day to live anyway. I can choose to live anyway. No matter how I see the world, I can make the choice every day to live. Isn't that what unaware people do? Okay. And then I wrote this: they live, they laugh, they create, they marry, they have children, they love. So if unaware people do that, why not be aware and do that? Okay. That was kind of an interesting thing that kind of came in. It's like you have all these people we see that walk through, and we say, oh, they're asleep, they don't really see, but they're living their life, and they're loving, they're laughing, they're having children, and I'm not saying it's just such an interesting thing, because we don't have to be in the depths of despair because we see the world differently, and we see the world for what it is, right? So I wrote, this type of awareness, it's not loud or performative or productive. You're not always in constant joy or forced optimism. That's not the kind of aliveness that I'm talking about. Okay, it's about being present and still being in your heart, and still realizing you have a heartbeat. You're still alive, right? You get to be present. Okay, you get to feel all the feels, and the quiet ones especially. This was really big for me this week. All the feels, the things that come in layers, the emotions, and then the gratitude. In fact, I flowed into that with some really beautiful thoughts as the week progressed. I'm going to share with you. So it's choosing and remembering. And I get to have this crystal clear, beautiful discernment. And that really flowed into me last week in my journaling, was just this crystal clear, beautiful discernment. That alone is a gift. Okay, I said, I can laugh for no reason. And then I wrote, or at funny reels Casey sends me. This is my sister. She's second from the bottom of my big family, and I'm second from the top. So there's almost 20 years between us. And sometimes she sends me the goofiest, silliest reels, and they make me laugh. Okay, I can laugh for no reason. I can move for the pure movement's sake. I've started doing some really cool Tai Chi movements every day, either in the middle of a workout or after a workout. And they're just simple. They move energy, and it's just makes me feel good in my body to do that. So I can laugh for no reason and move for just pure movement's sake. Okay. I can see beauty and appreciate it. I can connect with others with only connection in mind. I can connect just to connect with my fellow humans. In fact, I've really been aware of that as I've walked through this week in the different stores I go into. If I go into Costco, I went into Best Buy this week. Um, as I was standing in line at Best Buy, a cute young couple came behind me with their stuff in line, and they had a baby basket and like a car seat, or a, I don't even know what it's called, but they had a little baby carrier, and uh, I kind of peeked in, and there was this wide-eyed, beautiful baby. And I struck up a short conversation with this cute couple. They just were beaming with pride. I found out their baby's name, how old he was. And to me, that's just a simple beauty of connection. And I think we get so caught in our own self, our own phone, our own, we forget to connect, even just in small moments throughout the day and throughout the week. And this is something, connect with others with only connection in mind. I don't have an agenda except just connection. So here's to something else. I can sleep in, relax, and rest for the pureness of it, for just the pure rest, sleep in. And I've been doing this. I've been actually doing this since fall, since probably October. I've been finding myself, usually I'm a jump out of bed kind of person, super early, but I've just felt this need for deep rest and deep rejuvenation. And so I've been sleeping in. And for me, sleeping in is like 7, sometimes 7:30, which feels completely decadent. And and it feels so good. It feels so good. So sleep in, relax, and rest for the pureness of it. I don't have to earn it, or I don't have to deserve it. I'm alive, so I get to do it just for the pureness of rest and relaxation. We think we have to rush through this life so busy in every moment. And I know that a lot of people think, well, I'll rest and relax when I retire, or I'll rest and relax when I go on vacation. But if you think about a lot of people, they have to take a rest from their vacation because their vacations are so unrestful. I've experienced that many times myself. So to me, it's just, we don't have to be worthy or deserving to sleep in or rest or relax. Like, we get to do that because we're alive and we enjoy it. Okay. Being alive and acting alive makes my responsibilities feel sustainable. And then I put smileys and hearts all around that. Being alive and acting alive makes my responsibilities feel sustainable. Okay. I love that. Okay. So awareness without aliveness makes me brittle. Like I've realized that there was a piece of my personality that was not really me. And I was like, who is this? So I didn't like, feeling brittle is not a fun place to feel. Okay. But aliveness, without awareness, I think it makes, and what I wrote here is, it leads me to blindness. It feels like if I'm alive without awareness, I'm just walking through life blind. So to have the gift of awareness, then you can flow back in that aliveness and keep it there. Some people can stay aware. They can stay alive while they're being aware. Interesting, right? Then I wrote, these two together make me feel whole. And feeling whole is a wonderful, perfect place to land. Just because I choose to be alive, it doesn't change the world. Okay. I, for the most part, I can't change the world. I can change my own little corner of the world, myself, my family, my community, the people I serve in my business. I can make changes there. But I can't change the world. And there's a solemnness, kind of a grief that comes along with that. But then I don't have to stay in that place, right? Just because I choose to be alive, it doesn't change the world. And then I wrote, I know that. I've come to a deep peace with that. Awareness teaches me, or taught me to see. It just taught me to see. Aliveness reminds me how to stay in my body. Think about all the people that have chosen to take in their lives over the centuries, the decades, especially the rough stuff that we all have just been through in the last 6 years. But being alive reminds me how to stay here, stay in my body, all of this stuff. So then I actually came up with some really good questions for this. And then I have another section I'm going to share with you. So these are some questions that are perfect to journal on, and I'm going to go through them kind of quickly. So first, who am I without my opinions, and why does that thought scare me? Okay, it used to scare me. So if this is you, who am I without my opinions, and why does that thought scare me? You know, who would you be without your opinions on politics, on religion, on cultures, on education, on the medical system? Yeah, I have opinions on all of those things. And who would I be without those opinions? And does it scare me? Does it scare me not to be identified by those opinions? Okay. Where am I using awareness to justify not risking anything emotionally? What do I gain by staying heavy, vigilant, or serious? Okay. Where have I confused being right with being alive? That's a good one. And if nothing in this world changed, would I still permit myself to live fully? And why not? Okay. If nothing in the world changed, and the world is always changing. It's the only thing that's constant. In fact, I think that's what's freaking out most of us, is that the world is changing super, super fast, right? So if nothing in the world changed, would I still permit myself to live fully? And why not? Okay, so then this to me, these next set of questions, this helps reintroduce the sensation, the safety, and the presence of what it means to be alive. Where in my body do I feel most like myself right now? What happens to my breath when I imagine choosing aliveness today? You know, I catch myself holding my breath a ton. But I also am now to a place where I recognize it super, super fast. And I always take a nice deep breath. I fill up my lungs 2 or 3 times. I'll go through this, 30-second deep, deep, deep breath, hold at the top, hold, release, hold at the bottom. And I'll put myself back in my body very, very quickly, just because I've caught myself holding my breath. And I think a lot of us do that. Okay. What sensation tells me I'm safe enough to soften even briefly? What are the sensations that you feel in your body that tell you you're safe enough to soften? Soften. That's a great word. Where or when do I feel most here? Not useful, not alert, just here. Just present, just being. Okay. Where do I feel most here? And this could be where in your body, where in your home, where. That's a great question, right? What does my body want more of that my mind keeps delaying? Oh, that one is crazy good, right? So what does my body want more of that my mind keeps delaying? This is a really good time to just really think about how much you're spending time on your devices and your pure disconnection from being alive. Okay, so then after a few days on that, I actually took a full day where I didn't even pick up my journal, because I was just like, I'm just going to be alive and I'm just going to live in my body, and I don't need to sit and journal about it. I feel really solid. In fact, that is where I was going to end it, because I thought, you know what, that is perfect enough for me to not only come on and share, but it just felt like a completeness to the journaling. And then a day after that, I think it was Thursday, I had this really weird day where I had two massive emotions that kept coming in and layering in on top of each other. It was gratitude and grief. And I just thought, how are these two emotions coming in at the same time? And how do I navigate feeling gratitude and then feeling grief? And then coming out of grief and feeling it, and then having a massive amount of gratitude again. So I spent the next couple days journaling on that and this. And so to me, this feels really, really like a really beautiful segue into a second part of journaling on this week. So gratitude and grief, feeling both at the same time. Sometimes they don't feel like opposites to me. I guess it means seeing clearly while caring deeply. Okay. So seeing clearly while caring deeply. So the gratitude is for seeing clearly, and the grief is about caring deeply. Fascinating, right? So the grief is this: I love something, or I love something or someone enough to feel its loss. And I kind of was feeling that because I was thinking about my sister, who one of my sisters who separated from us because of on the last presidential election, and it wasn't even there were not even any conversations about it. It was just her perception of what other her siblings were doing, and now it's been a year and a few months because it was November of 24, and I was feeling grief. I was missing the sister who's completely separated from us. And it's like I love something or someone enough to feel its loss. And then this gratitude. I can be or am present enough to receive it all. You know, I can still feel all of that love. I can still care deeply, right? And see clearly that this is her journey, her own perception. And that's just one example of some of the things that have just kind of flowed in and out of my week, and maybe in and out of my sense of being as this time has gone by. So then I wrote this: they both require me contact and aliveness. Okay, so contact and aliveness. I Being numbed out makes me confused. Okay, so I realize this is why I've stepped away from scrolling. When they call it doom scrolling for a reason, because I'm numbing myself out. And when I do that, it actually leaves me confused. And I think if you really look at it that way, it can be very confusing because you've got this emotion of gratitude, you got the emotion of grief, you've got the awareness and the aliveness and all of the stuff, and then you numb yourself out. And when you finally pull yourself out of that because you've got to get up and go to work, or you got to get up and go to bed, or you got to, get up and live your life and take care of your kids or your responsibilities or whatever, then you just feel numbed out and confused. Okay, I wrote that. Being numbed out makes me confused. It feels like out emotional models, maybe outdated, I meant to write. It feels like outdated emotional models. Okay. When I'm simply aware, and right now I feel mature awareness, and I put mature in quotation marks. Okay. Um, right now I feel mature awareness. Emotions don't all arrive at once. Thank God. Okay, thank God. They come in moments and layers. Okay, that's it. That's been, and I'm sure so many of you guys listening to this can probably totally relate to that. Okay, when I was early aware, okay, I think about when, especially, I always say I felt like I've been aware my whole life, but then 2020 hit, and it really escalated for many, many, many people. Okay, so this is what I wrote. When I first felt early to the awareness game, it felt like this: this is good and this is bad. Okay, cut and dry. This is good, this is bad. Then, as I went deeper into awareness, it started to feel complicated. Okay, like this is beautiful, but it's unbearable. Okay, that's a complicated way to really think about awareness, right? Okay, so the awareness started to feel complicated, like this is beautiful and this is unbearable. um, then I wrote this. Well, here's where I find myself now. I am grateful because, and I underline because, I know that nothing is guaranteed. To me, I'm so grateful that I have that awareness. And then I said, I grieve because I know what's at stake. Okay, so this is the grief and the gratitude. I'm grateful because I know that nothing is guaranteed. And I grieve because I know what's at stake. And then I wrote this, and I feel alive because I haven't numbed out the edges of what makes me alive and human. This truly is the gift that I can go through all of this. We can go through this. If you're relating to this on any level, wherever you are in any stages of all of this, um, definitely give yourself grace for not numbing yourself out. at the edges. And I know that there are people who have. They've gone to the far end of the extreme of taking themselves out of this life because they're so numbed out, you know. So this is where so let me read this again. And I feel alive because I haven't numbed out the edges of what makes me alive and human. And then this, and wow, I've realized something huge. My nervous system can hold opposites now. I can hold gratitude and grief at the same time. Okay. Appreciation and sorrow, presence and loss, aliveness and ache. I can be alive and I can still ache and have, and what I feel is the matureness of it all happens faster. It's actually very difficult to put some of this stuff into words. And I hope that you kind of understand where I'm coming from, okay, on this. And then this. Lately, I feel more tender and not euphoric. Okay, so when I used to, you know, even take, I say this all the time too because it's such a big part of my life, climbing to the top of a mountain. There is a euphoric feeling there. But to me, it feels more tender. It feels just a little softer than just euphoria. And that might sound weird, but that's what I wrote. And then I wrote weird but cool, right? Quiet, aching, grateful, and alive. Quiet, aching, grateful, and alive. You know, there, um, God, this life of being a human and aware and having the emotions and having the growth, and then I wrote this. It feels like a form of wisdom, and that's actually where I ended. It's like it feels like a form of wisdom. It's like okay, and so then I thought, okay, well, I need to finish this off, and this is absolutely perfect with a couple more questions about the whole opposite thing of feeling these things, gratitude and grief, in layers and complicated, beautiful layers at the same time. Okay, and this is where I'm going to end it. What am I grieving because I was truly present enough to love it? That one is so great. Where does my gratitude feel tender rather than celebratory? And what is that tenderness protecting? What part of me is asking to be honored, not fixed, in this season? How does my body hold both thankfulness and ache at the same time? And what happens if I don't resolve it? These are questions I'm going to journal on this week. And then this final one. If this mix of gratitude and grief is evidence of aliveness, what does it say about who I am becoming? You know, that I don't know. I wouldn't go back to being 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 again. I think many times for most people, most human beings, we go through our life, we learn the lessons, we get all the feels, we either come out of it harder, more tender, uh, more in gratitude, however we come through it. And I haven't talked to too many older people who feel hard and who feel ungrateful. Um, I'm sure there are people like that, but it feels like the older you get, especially in these accelerating times, the growth that we get in the wisdom, in the gratitude, in feeling all the feels of being a human and all the stuff. This is the best time to get the growth that, holy moly, holding on for the ride, right? So I don't know if you can relate to any of this, but the last few days of this week with the grief and the gratitude, we're talking about like massive tears, massive holding my heart, and then letting it out, and then after it's released, realizing that you really have to feel these emotions, and then you just flow into gratitude. It's just wild. It's just wild. But I don't know if you can relate to that at all, but I would love to hear what you think. But I hope you have an absolutely beautiful last week in January of 2026. Holy moly. I hope your week is beautiful. I would love to know what you think about this. This seems like kind of a deep topic that I kind of got to journal on this week. Kind of crazy. Just me, my own personal self reflecting on my life and what I see. So thank you guys so much for being here. I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful week, and we will see you next time.